everybody. This is Mike Lowe with Operation Sports, and this is episode 4 of the MyGM. Specifically, following the expansion team that we created here, we are at the start of Season 2, so I've actually skipped ahead. I did a longer episode 4 that I haven't actually edited because I think I just wanted to kind of go a shorter route this time. And really, the whole idea behind this episode is kind of getting back to what I talked about in the first one, which is not so much making a dynasty report or anything like that, but just talking about the game, what it does well, what are some constructive criticisms, and then also talking about some of the design aspects that this game and this mode allow for. So this episode specifically going to be talking about what does expansion GM, what does an expansion MyGM look like here in Season 2, and that's exactly where we're at. So there are a lot of things that I know we're maybe curious to see how the draft went and things like that, and that's actually where I want to start. But first, kind of just the 4 topics or even 5 topics I plan on talking about is the actual draft itself, trading, that kind of goes along with that. But then also looking at staff hiring, how that was handled in the offseason, some pros and cons of that, how the schedule looks in Season 2. We're also going to be looking at free agency and how that was handled, and how it sort of looks at the opening day here of Season 2, where the players signed, where the right players signed, that sort of thing. We'll look at realistic goals, or the goals that were set by the owner here in Season 2. Are they matching up with what we'd expect to see for a Season 2 expansion team based on his personality, of course? And then also just some nice other tidbits that we may see, such as the way the game tracks history, retired numbers, and that sort of thing. And then, of course, I did make just a few slight tweaks to the Grackles uniforms here. So let's start with the draft. And first of all, I can say the draft was a lot of fun. Again, I have basically an hour-long stream that I haven't uploaded yet that covers the entire draft. I recorded the whole thing, and it was cool. I really think one of the things that took place in this draft that I'll use as an example are the Miami Heat, who had the #1 pick in the draft. And the Heat ended up making a series of trades. They traded down from #1 to #5, and they ended up selecting Dennis, or was it Smith Jr.? Is that his name? Because long story short, he's on our team now. Dennis Smith Jr. They picked at the #5 pick, and when our pick came up at #10, I was trying to trade up #8, didn't have time, and just kind of ran out of time before I could do it. We tried to trade up at #8, could not do it, but then Miami reached out to us about a possible trade, and they wanted to trade Dennis Smith Jr. to move down to #10. And so oddly enough, this is what happened, right? So let me just kind of go to trades, and let's go all the way down here to kind of where the draft trades were taking place. You see those are still in the season. First off, most of the trades were good. There were a lot, so maybe there's an argument there that maybe there's too many going on during the draft, and then that's the only time there were trades. There were no off-season trades outside of the draft. So I guess even though there may seem to be a lot with the draft, if you kind of look at it as a whole off-season, perhaps it's a more understandable in that regard. So anyway, you can see that there are a handful of trades. I'm not going to focus on every single one, but here's that first one I talked about, right, where the Suns trade. They traded their 5th round pick, and De'Aaron Fox was the #1 overall pick. So he traded him and another guard to the Suns for that 5th pick, and all they pick up is a 2nd round pick. And so without going into all the details, it seems like the game may value kind of stockpiling 2nd round picks for some reason, because that seems kind of odd. If they really wanted, anyway, I can go on and on. There's different arguments you can make for that, but it just seems like maybe in this trade here, where they're essentially trading down and losing an extra player just to pick up a 2nd rounder, it seemed kind of odd. There's some other trades that took place, and big names. You can see Kemba Walker. And then here's the trade that the Heat offered us, right? So they offered us the #5 pick, basically, Dennis Smith Jr. And this is where our pick came up. And so they said, hey, we want to trade down. We want that #10 pick. All you got to do is throw in your 2nd rounder. So again, stockpiling that 2nd round pick, it seemed odd to us. And I felt bad accepting this, but Dennis Smith Jr. is the player that I wanted probably more than anyone in this entire draft. So when that popped up, we were pretty excited. And if I upload the other video, you can kind of see that whole decision-making process that took place there. But that's what happened. Again, there are some other trades that did take place all during the draft again. And then our team did make one more draft at the end of the draft, I should say. So as I go through here, you can see the trades that did take place. Um, you can see our second round pick then was obviously moved by the Heat and another deal, so they traded up again in the first. Okay, there's a reason why a team would want some extra second rounders, but again, it's just a little strange perhaps. And then this was the last trade that we made after the draft. I wanted to actually just free up a roster spot, and so I just said, hey, I want to get rid of Jake Layman instead of cut him. What can I get? And you can see again, is this more of that overvaluing of second round picks, because I traded a 2020 second round pick and a 23-year-old Jake Layman who's like a 70 overall, so just a dude, right? Um, for a first round pick that, granted, it's a top 3 protected, but still that could be a lottery pick. It very well could be a lottery pick by 2020. So that trade made perfect sense for us. And again, I'm almost kind of taking advantage of the game here. But in MyGM, you don't have the ability to adjust the difficulty of trade. So again, just a small criticism. It's nothing bad. This does not ruin the mode. There were a lot of draft trades, but as I mentioned, if you look at it as an offseason as a whole, really not that bad. But maybe the trade AI, at least at the default setting, it'd be cool, or even just give us the option to adjust that difficulty in MyGM would be really nice, because I think that could definitely help. And so anyway, that was the draft. I will show you our roster here a little bit later on, but I wanted to show you specifically Miami's roster. Let's do that, because let's see what they ended up with. So they actually ended up with 3 first-round picks, right? And it's these 3 here, Brunson, and then these 2 are the European guys. So we have they ended up with the 4th pick. Now again, they actually had a handful of picks just coming into this draft. I mean, they had number 1, they had number 4, and then they moved some around, right? So they did end up with him, but you can see it, not the greatest of picks there for the 4th overall. Will he develop into a decent player? We'll see. And then they also, at pick 23, picked up another forward. Let's look at his. So again, potential. These guys are just going to be guys more than likely, right? Nothing crazy. They did pick up now this is the 10th pick, right? When they got my pick, here's who they picked. So keep in mind, they traded Smith Jr. to pick this guy, and they only picked up a 2nd round pick. So again, it's just a little odd. Not that Jalen Brunson's a bad player or anything, but it's just, it doesn't really make a ton of sense as to why they'd want to do something like that. So that's what the Heat ended up with. So anyway, again, first thing I wanted to look at again was just kind of the draft and how it went. Maybe I'll upload that full version later on. One area that I was a little disappointed in the off season with MyGM is the handling of the staff signings. There were a lot of staff turnover, and some of it was almost just like just coaches kind of going everywhere. I mean, just new coaches coaching different teams, and it seemed odd. I mean, there were some assistant coaches that got jobs, which was kind of cool. But overall, there was just a lot of coach turnover. Here's the Grackle staff, by the way. We did end up hiring Ron Adams, who I'm pretty happy with. I really like that badge he has of can help greatly increase the chance of developing signature skills. So I like that a lot. But as you just kind of go through and look at some of the head coaches and just see, some of the guys who moved around, I'll go quick here. Doc Rivers now with the Heat. But again, I've highlighted all of the head coaches. So Tyronn Lue now with the Kings, McHale with the Knights, or what am I saying, with the Knicks, Carlisle with the Lakers, and so Mallard's made a coaching change, the other expansion team. So as I just go through this, you'll see a lot of names have changed, and not all, of course. I want to check back with the Suns. And so, again, not all. Spoelstra has rejoined. Actually, he has not rejoined LeBron because LeBron signed with the Golden State Warriors. Free agency was actually pretty good. I'm going to talk about that in just a second. But the 2 biggest names did change teams. So anyway, yeah, coach. So here's my recommendation, because the staff hiring is kind of a mess, and I think the reason we see that the players actually worked out pretty well. Player free agency was pretty good. It was really realistic, and that's the 3rd point I want to get to in just a bit. I think the issue with staff hiring is that there's not an ability to do it during the regular season. It just throws you into it all at the end of the season, and those contracts that are expiring, everything's just kind of handled all at once, and it just kind of creates a big mess. I think if they could streamline it where you're doing it during the season, like the players are, that would help because we see the AI team signing players in the off season. I don't know if I can go all the way back that far, but let's see if it lets me. I don't think it's gonna go back. Yeah. Oh no, it does. So you can see right there, there are some re-signings that are taking place. Teams that are re-signing their own players, and these are good things because it helps kind of clean up free agency a little bit. But you don't see that with the same with the coaching. Now you get firings. If I go to coach firings, these were during the year, right? So we did have some coaches being fired, but we don't have any like extensions being signed. These are all in the off season. So except for of course the coach is being rehired, so they have a coach. But overall, uh, yeah, some of the you can see just some of the transactions were just a little goofy. Um, I did mention, by the way, right, free agency, two of the big names signing. Well, I'll tell you about that later, but LeBron I mentioned is one who signed with the Golden State Warriors, who were a playoff disappointment. I think they did they even get out of the second round? I'm trying to remember from the previous episode. So anyway, point number two I wanted to make about staff hiring, I do think that could use a little bit of work for next year. To kind of go along with another constructive criticism is the schedule and how it looks in season two. First off, it's not bad. I really kind of dig through and just look for a few things. So these red squares mean that they're an away game, right? So there's a couple things here that I noticed. And the first one, not a big deal. I guess what I was looking for is like, I wonder if they actually respected having like West Coast trips and that sort of thing. If I'm playing the Trailblazers, I'm also going to be playing the Lakers and the Clippers and the Suns and these sort of things. And we don't quite see that. I mean, this would be kind of a tough road schedule, going to Cleveland and to Portland and then back to New Orleans, but then back out west to Phoenix and then back into the central area for Oklahoma or the Midwest and then back out west a few days later. Here we stay out west for a couple games with an off day in between. So kind of all over the place, which again, it's a game, not a huge deal. One thing I did notice is we have 3 games in a row against Memphis, right? 2 of them on the road with 2 days off in between. And then here's the 3rd game against Memphis, almost like a playoff series. Now, MLB baseball has started to do that with, especially their what's it called? Interleague play, where they'll have a 2-2 series or something like that, 2 games home, 2 games away. So maybe, hey, maybe that's what's going on here, right? The NBA's just made a big change. So you could at least tell yourself that. But I wanted to point that out. I don't think it's broken. I don't think it's terrible. It's nothing like that. But just maybe the scheduling algorithm that's used could just be tweaked slightly to avoid some of those things. Because that's how a real life schedule is created, right? They put certain rules in, or they put certain requests in of like Team A playing Team B on Christmas, for instance, or Team A not playing these particular teams until they're in this particular time of the year, or whatever it is. Like they do that in baseball a lot with the weather, in the northern cities. And so, same thing though. It's all an algorithm. They make real life schedules just the same way that they can make game schedules in a video game. So I thought that would be kind of a cool thing that maybe the 2K team could work on for next year. And again, very minor, but it would definitely help. So one of the big pros, probably the biggest pro I thought that I've seen going from year one to year two is just how free agency went. It was realistic and it was hard. It was really hard. Now I'm an expansion team, and I had mentioned I was trying to get Kevin Durant to sign with us really, really badly. That did not happen. I sat down and talked to him a couple times, but he absolutely did not sign with us. He actually signed with none other than the Miami Heat, our team that we were kind of featuring there in the draft. So I'm scrolling through this really, really quickly, of course, but you can see there are a lot of signings, of course, in the off season, and I'll show you a few rosters. But yeah, Kevin Durant did sign with the Heat. He was the big one, and then also, of course, LeBron James, as I mentioned, going to Golden State. But everything else was pretty realistic. There's Kevin Durant, and so it was good. It was really challenging. Again, I mentioned Durant was the guy we were going after. He rejected us, signed somewhere else. Um, let's see. Paul Millsap was a guy later on. Well, when it was kind of drying up, we were trying to go after, and he actually signed with the Mallards. Uh, let's see who else. I'm trying to remember. Antetokounmpo, I think is how you pronounce it. We were going after him after we lost out on Durant, and he actually re-signed with the Bucks. Um, there were a few other players. I mean, really, really, we were just trying to get some talent to come in, and we did end up getting some decent players. Let me show you how our roster looks now. Whoops. But as you know, we did end up with Dennis Smith Jr. We did not draft him, but he was the 5th round pick that we ended up trading to get during the draft. So super excited about him. We did send him to a camp as well, to the athleticism camp, I think it was called. And he is just going to be just sick. If you look at some of these, when we get down to like his speed ratings and stuff, they're just disgusting. 92 speed with the ball 96, acceleration 95, vertical 95. Great stamina to go along with that speed. So I mean, this guy is going to be something special. His potential is pretty darn good at B plus. So anyway, we did sign up. We signed Patrick Mills as a backup guard. Really excited about him. I think he brings a little bit of offense, while Smith brings that athleticism. Mills will be able to really help us off the bench and score, which will be nice. Whitehead is back, who we picked in the expansion draft. Probably our biggest free agent signing was Victor Oladipo, who we did end up signing. And his contract, let me just show you there. A few years, we had to pretty close to maxing him out. But I tried to do it a front-loaded contract, so we figured we're going to have less money problems early as an expansion team than we would later. So we were excited to get Oladipo, who now kind of bumps Powell down to the bench. But I think that's going to be a good spot for him, and it really gives us some really nice depth at the guards. So we have 4 nice guards here for sure. We also signed Jordan McRae, again, just another kind of an offensive guy off the bench here, we think can help. And let's see, we also, probably the last guy I think we signed was Otto Porter. He will come in and play small forward, as we're kind of just trying to find somebody to fill that spot with Durant and a few others that we lost out on. Porter's going to come on, and again, excited to have him. Let's see, I think we had to give him not too bad a contract, $13 million a year for just 2 years. So kind of a stopgap until we figure out what we want to do long term. Jeremy Grant, we got in a trade last year. He's back. Reggie Bullock is back. We got an expansion draft. Taj Gibson, we got an expansion draft. He's regressed, but he's back and should be starting for us. Again, he had a really nice year. I do like Taj Gibson, especially. Look how cheap we got him. So again, maybe a critique there. He's making over $10 million last year and signed an extension for pennies to the dollar, basically. David Lee's back. He also has regressed a little bit, but again, not a bad player. Another player we ended up signing very late in free agency was Noel, and so really excited to have him. We sent him to the big man defensive camp, and he came back looking really strong. We did give him a max contract, as you can see there, but we're excited to have him, and I really think 23-year-old Noel, a 19-year-old Smith Jr. We have some really nice pieces in place here that are young, and are really starting to build a really strong core here, I think. So. We still have Zelli, who we may end up looking to move with him coming off the bench and really only playing the 5. Hibbert we re-signed, again, another guy we might look to move, one of these veteran centers here. And we still had Diallo, just kind of a project at this point. So we let some other guys kind of go away, like Zimmerman we let walk and that sort of thing. But overall, really happy with the team. Give you a quick look at the Grackles team too, and then we'll move on here. Or, I'm sorry, the Malage team. You just saw the Grackles. So Millsap was their big signing. And their first round pick, it was a little bit later in the draft. Let's see, who the heck was it? There he is. Juan Hernan Gomez from Spain. 15th pick in the draft, power forward. 71 overall. Not terrible. B plus potential, so not a bad pick. Only plays power forward, so we'll see how that works out. I think that was their only pick they had. So anyway, but free agency was really good. There were some players that moved around, but there were also a lot of re-signings, and I don't think I saw anything that was really head-scratching. And I think the game did a really nice job with free agency, and really, most importantly, because some games struggle with this. MLB The Show, for instance, struggles with this part here. We don't have any unsigned players. We don't have guys who are like rated 85, where you have like 6 guys just sitting there going unsigned. I mean, right now it's slim pickings. If you needed to get something, you're getting a depth guy at best. 40-year-old Vince Carter, guys like that. So the game did a really good job of kind of sapping up all the talent. If I went through and showed you, I won't do this to bore you, but I mean, you're not going to see teams that only have like 1 point guard or anything like that. The game did a pretty good job of balancing that out. So Really nice job. That was probably the best compliment I can give. Just kind of going through the off season was the way free agency went. It was super hard. Another positive that I saw was the way in which the goals and promises worked. So here are the demands and the wish list from my owner, who is really loving me lately. The first one is old, right? 5 seasons to get to the playoffs. That's still there. A new one, he wants us to sell out 32 home games. So, okay, that could be a lot because we were only about 72% attendance last year. That's going to be a tough one. On the wish list, he wants us to be profitable. That's an old goal he gave us for 3 years. And now he wants, within 3 seasons, he wants a championship, which I said, probably not going to happen, bud. So I'm trying to, kind of protect my integrity there, I guess, by just keeping it realistic for him because, come on, I mean, 3 years in an expansion team. By their fourth year, that's a lot. And then he wants us to create some cap space. I think I said we might do that, creating 25 million. That we'll see. There's going to be some big free agents that he wants us to go after. So I thought that was really cool. I think the game did a good job of that. Again, looking at kind of his personality, it fits that really well. And my job security is just through the roof here. He's really excited. One of the goals he gave me was to make sure we had a strong six-man, which we did actually when I got that trade for Dennis Smith Jr. It popped up that, congratulations, you've succeeded that goal, and he's loving me since then. So works for me. I want to keep my job, right? Another thing I really, really love about this game, and I may have touched on this in earlier episodes, but it is the way that team history is tracked. Now, again, you're not going to see a lot with the Grackles, but this is all updated, right? So last playoff appearance for the Bucks, you can see 2017. If I go to the Celtics, for instance, right, you're going to see retired numbers. Now number 34 is listed. It's not in numerical order for some reason there, but that tells me that at least the game is adding those in. They are adding in those new retired numbers, which of course was Paul Pierce. The Timberwolves will have the same thing with Garnett, right? Where am I going here? There you go, number 21. So still not seeing any rivals show up, I don't think, for the Mallards or us Grackles here, but that's okay. We'll see if that starts to take place. And again, I just think it's really, really cool how you can see those retired numbers that are now in the game. Let me find you, so you can see Kevin Garnett has added there. So I just think that's such a cool, nice little touch there of the history tracking this and the different records that are taking place. So you can see right there, we have our team records as an expansion team, and these are all updated. If I go through here, it's a new one for Memphis in 2000. Oh, sorry, that was 2007. But if I scroll through, you'll see some that are from 2017. And so somewhere, I'm sure there's some. There we go. So just some really, really cool things. Oh, again, that's the Mallards, of course. So all theirs are new, but yeah, just it's nice that all that's tracked and it's updated. Here's some from Anthony Davis, who had a nice year. So just a really, really nice thing that they did there. So I'm really loving that. Again, the season 2 is looking really, really cool. I'm excited to get it going. And really, the last thing I mentioned another one because this was another episode because this was locked out before. It was could not go in and edit this during the off season, but you can always go in and update your uniform or your arena, which I did. All right, so I made just some small changes to our court floor, just kind of changed the key color, which you can see there. So there's some really, really subtle changes to the Whole Foods Center, and made just some small changes to the away jersey. And another user on YouTube, and I don't have the name in front of me, but recommended something that I had been thinking about too, as far as like using alternate uniforms, which is just if you can go in here and just load in. Well, I'll show you in a second. These are the changes. Just made the numbers white instead of their blue last year. A little bit harder to see. They're a little bit easier to see now. So happy with how the jerseys are looking. But you could go in here. I forget exactly where you do this. Let's see. Somewhere in here you can actually load in your at least I thought you could. Well, anyway, maybe it doesn't let you in MyGM, but I know in my league there's a way you can go in and just you could load in your own design again, and you could save different versions. So you could have like your primary home and away, and then you could also have an alternate home and away. So before you start a game, you could just go in and load that in. So again, just an idea that could help you. I just don't know if there's a way to do that. So anyway, I'll stop digging around and wasting your time. But if you could, cool. If not, worst case, at least you can go in and make those changes if you wanted to before a particular game or whatever, or at least season to season, which is how I'm doing it. So anyway, that's a wrap. I wanted just to kind of show you how things are looking in MyGM, especially with an expansion team. And into year two, right? The start of the second season, and I think it's held up well. It's done a really nice job. And again, I simulated a lot of this. I'm excited to get in and start playing some games with Dennis Smith Jr., which was part of a custom draft class I downloaded. I downloaded another custom draft class for this year, and you can see here, right? So we have the 2000, I guess, would this be 18 draft class that will start scouting soon. So anyway, that's a wrap for this episode, folks. Thanks so much for watching. I'm Mike Lowe. You can follow me on Twitter, MikeLowe_OS. That's MikeLowe_OS, or subscribe to the YouTube channel, or do both. I'd love to hear the comments, and thanks so much for answering. And hopefully, I've gotten back to any questions that are out there on the YouTube channel or Twitter. And again, thanks so much, everybody. Enjoy NBA2K. Enjoy your other sport titles that are always being discussed on Operation Sports, and I love to hear from you. So thanks so much for sharing all of your stories and then what you're finding that work, because I'm using a lot of those little hints and tricks that you've all given me. So I really do appreciate those, and then hopefully these are helping you as well. So again, thanks everyone. We'll talk soon, and have a great rest of your week.